Hello again, everyone. This is your average Jen coming at you from my bedroom. I've got 3 sleeping cats in here this time. Okay, so we are going to go on another Bible journey, Genesis episode 7. And yeah, I forgot what's going on there, so we're going to find out together. Kind of like my Bible journey episodes. They're interesting. I find them interesting anyway. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the Weird Bible section of I'm Only Human, a podcast that is probably destined to become controversial if anyone actually listened to it. Inspired by people for people. I have different story arcs going on throughout my podcast, and this area focuses on the NIV Bible, copyright 2011. I'm taking things directly from the Bible and putting an average human perspective on history. According to the Bible, we were created in the image of this person named God. Well, there are plenty of other views on the topic too, but this one will remain focused on the Bible. I feel the repetition of human emotions and behaviors that preceded all the foolishness that has led to the culture of our modern world has been greatly overlooked. I will not be speaking in traditional religious terms, and I'm sure I'll be saying a bunch of stuff wrong too. My apologies in advance. I'm not trying to destroy religion. I believe we were all created equal. Somewhere along the line, we forgot about that. I believe there is more knowledge in the Bible than people realize. Join me on this exciting adventure. How does our modern world compare to the world in the Bible? Is God the biggest grifter of all time? I would like to state that I am not an expert. I get my knowledge by observation, evaluating, researching, and building on the things I learned from other people. I believe there is truth in science fiction, movies, and in children's stories. It's time to wake up. It's time to reprogram our thinking and change our world in a peaceful way. Hello, everyone. It is recap time. I'm so glad I do these recaps. I forget what happened because it takes so long to create the next episode. The stuff that happened seems like it was so long ago. Well, I know it was way long ago, but I mean, it's been so long since it's crossed my mind. Here we go. Sodom was a corrupt place. God was going to destroy it, but Abraham's nephew Lot was living there. The Lord sent 2 angels ahead to let Lot know that the town would be destroyed and that he might want to leave. While the angels were indoors at Lot's house, there was a mob of men that came and wanted to rape the 2 men/angels. Lot offered to toss his 2 virgin daughters out to this angry mob in place of the 2 men. The town was destroyed once Lot was safe. Lot's wife looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. Then Lot and his 2 daughters ended up in the mountains where both daughters got their father drunk and raped him. Each daughter conceived a child and each daughter gave birth to a son. Then we flip back to Abraham and Amalek and the story about God cursing Amalek's household due to Abraham's wife Sarah. God had promised that Sarah would give birth to a son at the age of 90 years old. How's that for a wild recap? It's time to tune in and find out what happened next. Genesis 21. Here is a summary of events. Sarah gave birth to Isaac. Isaac was circumcised when he was 8 days old. Sarah was happy to finally have the pleasure of being a mother. Abraham held a party on the day Isaac was weaned from his mom. Sarah got snippy when she saw Ishmael. She thought the boy, who was now at least 15, was mocking her son. Sarah could no longer tolerate looking at her husband's other son. Do you remember Ishmael? Ishmael is alive because back when Sarah was named Sarai, she ordered her female Egyptian slave Hagar to sleep with her husband so that the bloodline would continue. Ishmael was destined to be a donkey of a man, but Abraham loved him anyway. Sarai treated Hagar horrible after Abraham knocked her up. Enough of the little flashback. Back to the celebration of Isaac getting older and weaned from Sarah. There was a big shindig going on, but Sarah was not too happy. Sarah let Abraham know that she was not too thrilled about his other son being present at Isaac's party. She wanted those people out of her life so that Isaac would not have to share an inheritance with Ishmael. She demanded that Abraham get rid of them. This was not an easy thing for Abraham to do because he loved his other son. I don't know how he felt about Hagar. God told Abraham not to worry about Ishmael. Ishmael would be the father of a great nation because Abraham was his father. So Abraham sent his son and Hagar away. He gave them some provisions for the journey. Genesis 21:14 to 20. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went up and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. And as she sat there, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. While he was living in the desert of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. End verse. I don't know why I thought of Ishmael as a small boy during this story. Keep in mind that he's roughly 15, possibly slightly older. The wording in the Bible is a peculiar thing. It's hard to know the exact truth because the stories are scattered and written oddly. God pulled a little matrix stuff there. Did you see it? Hagar was upset because she had no more water. I think that if there was a well near her, she would have found it. I don't think she was so dumb as to not see a well. I think that in the Matrix, things that are needed can appear by the programmer. Is this what is meant by God opening her eyes? It sounds like the well was right there the whole time, but for some reason she was not able to find it. Remember when blindness struck the horny zombies outside of Lot's house? I think the same thing happened. The door to Lot's house was removed or sealed so the zombies couldn't get inside. You see, there is some truth in science fiction. We only need to expand our minds to notice it. Maybe science fiction came from reading the Bible and seeing a different point of view. Changing scene now. We find ourselves back with Abraham, Amalek, and Phicol, the commander of Amalek's forces. And I'm sure I'm saying this guy's name wrong, and I'm sorry. Anyway, Genesis 21:22 to 34. At that time, Amalek and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me in the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown to you. Abraham said, I swear it. Then Abraham complained to Amalek about a well of water that Amalek's servants had seized. But Amalek said, I do not know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only today. So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Amalek, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock, and Amalek asked Abraham, What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves? He replied, Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well. So that place was called Beersheba, because the two men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Amalek and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. End verse. I don't know if this will be a factor later. The treaty was for water rights from this well that Abraham swore he dug himself. Now more time goes by, but the Bible doesn't say how much time has gone by because it's not written by a professional screenplay writer. Abraham is about to be tested by God, and he passes the test. Genesis 22 talks about how Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac to God because God had asked him to do so. Abraham and Isaac go on a little trip. Isaac is possibly about 12 years old right now. It's not clear. Don't worry, you will get to hear the story. This story has all the makings of a horror movie, too, if you want to think of it that way. Of course, I will probably provide my commentary on the story as well. Ready? Genesis 22, verse 1 to 19. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. When they had reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham! Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, quote, the Lord will provide, end quote. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. End verse. Wow. Did you happen to notice anything about this story? Of course, I have to put my perspective on it. Isaac was not Abraham's only son. Ishmael was also Abraham's son, and he loved both of them. Abraham didn't want to send Ishmael away. It was Sarah that made him, and God backed her up on that. God favored Isaac over Ishmael. I'm sure it has to do with bloodline. If I remember correctly, Abraham was a descendant of Noah. I guess we all are. Hagar was of Egyptian heritage, which I don't understand since all life had been wiped out, and then Noah's family was the only family left to repopulate the world. How were there different ethnic people? I still think there was more than one creator. Back in Genesis, verse 1, 26 and 27, where God said, quote, let us make mankind in our image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground, end quote. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. End verse. Moving on with my thoughts, Abraham moved quick, and he was up and preparing the next morning. He had his son and his 2 servants with him. It feels like he was driven. It felt like there was no hesitation at all. I wonder what the son thought. Like, all of a sudden, his dad straps him down to the altar. Like, was the kid freaking out? They don't ever tell that part of the story. And we don't know if Abraham was sad at all. We don't know if the kid freaked out. It was almost like he was in a trance. He raised that knife and was going to plunge it into his son. The angel of the Lord had to stop him. Do you suppose the humans that go to war for their gods feel the same drive and lack of emotion when killing another person? How does one disconnect so much that the sounds of fear, despair, and agony don't speak to your soul? Does evil relish in those sounds? Is that what we're really fighting against? I can't even fathom that level of evil. At any rate, Abraham showed his loyalty to his God, and he was rewarded because of it. He didn't have to sacrifice his son. There's some foreshadowing because God tells Abraham that his descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through his offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. I think that it is important to start paying attention to the bloodline. Maybe it will shed some light on the current world events. We're about to move forward in the story again. In Genesis 23, Sarah dies at 127 years old. This means that Isaac is now 37 years old, since Sarah had him at age 90. Abraham mourned Sarah. Abraham made a deal with Ephron the Hittite. He purchased land in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in the land of Canaan. There was a cave on the land, and that is where he buried Sarah. The land was deeded to Abraham as a burial site. The price was 400 shekels, which is 98 American dollars today. Currency has always existed, I suppose. Abraham was a wealthy man. He was the one that insisted he pay for that land. The Hittites were more than happy to give him the land, but I remember that Abraham refused to take anything that was offered to him after that war because he never wanted anyone to say that Abraham owed them anything. He wanted to live a free man with no ties. I suppose that people with wealth are not always corrupt. Moving forward some more, we find Abraham is very old and the Lord had blessed him in every way. The next task was to find a wife for Isaac. This is weird to me, so I'm going to read it as it is written. Genesis 24, verse 1 to 9. Abraham was now very old, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. He said to the senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, "Put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am living, but will go to my country and my own relatives to get a wife for my son Isaac." The servant asked him, "What if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son back to the country you came from?" "Make sure that you do not take my son back there," Abraham said. "The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, 'To your offspring I will give this land.' He will send his angel before you so you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you will be released from this oath of mine. Only do not take my son back there." So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master, Abraham, and swore an oath to him concerning this matter. End verse. It appears as though it was custom to marry a relative. That is how it appears to me. With the conflict going on in the world right now, I'm paying attention to this land that was promised to Abraham by God. This land was currently under the control of the Canaanites. I'll bring this back to Noah too. The Canaanites were doomed to conflict with the Semites and the Japhetites. This was going back to when Noah's son Ham found Noah passed out and naked from his wine. Noah cursed his grandson Canaan to be the slave of his uncles Shem and Japheth. God praised Shem on that day. Shem is the father of Abraham. God also extended Japheth's territory on that day, said that his people and his brother Shem's people would be good sharing some territory too. They were allies. I'm starting to get caught up in the story, but I think it's a good place to end the episode. Join me again as we follow our Bible friends and look at the buildup to the problems of today from our history. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share, but let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like and share it. Comments also help other struggling people find it. I am also listener supported, and if you would like to contribute, please feel free to do so. There is no obligation. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875 at gmail.com. There is also a link you can click if you'd like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show.
I'm sorry, I'm muted there. So yeah, I don't have too much more to say about that episode. Kitty wanted to say hello. Maybe I'll just edit this out. Okay, so join me again next time. I don't know. All right, well, thank you for listening, and join me again next time for another exciting episode, which will be completely different than this episode. Bye bye.